our sister host, Sister Fernanda, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here representing the IGG. So whatever I'm going to talk is on behalf of the IGG. We are very, very happy to be here today at John Paul II Justice and Peace Center for this important occasion when we are launching the anti-corruption campaign. This shows the confidence you have in the Inspectorate of Government, you have in government, and you have also in yourselves in the fight against corruption. The Inspector General of Government was established in 1986 to fight corruption, to eliminate corruption. But that time it was under the President's office. It was not even, there was no statute for it. But in 1988, a statute was established, the 2nd of 1988 statute. That's when the IGG was recognized as an institution. In 1995, a constitution was made, and it included the Inspectorate of Government. The Inspectorate of Government became a constitutional office in 1995. The 2002 statute made the Inspectorate of Government, the name changed from being called the Inspector General of Government to the Inspectorate of Government. And the person who heads the Inspectorate of Government is now the one called the IGG, Inspector General of Government. Our vision, the vision of the Inspectorate of Government, is good governance. You listen very carefully. Good governance with an ethical and corruption-free society. Good governance with an ethical and a free, corruption-free society. That is our vision. The mission of the Inspectorate of Government, what we are supposed to do is to promote good governance through enhancing accountability, transparency, and the enforcement of the rule of law and administrative justice in the public office. We must ensure the rule of law and accountability in the public offices. Core values of the Inspectorate of Government are integrity, impartiality, professionalism, and gender equality and equity. Under Article 225(1) of the Constitution, the Inspectorate of Government is charged with the mandate to eliminate corruption, to eliminate and foster the elimination of corruption, abuse of authority in the public office, among other functions. The other functions are promote and enforce the strict adherence to the rule of law and the principles of natural justice. The second, another one is promotion of fair, efficient, good governance in public offices. Fair, efficient, and good governance in public offices. And the supervision of the leadership code of conduct. We also enforce the leadership code of conduct. So when you look at this, there are a wide varieties of things you are supposed to do to improve good governance. As we launch this anti-corruption campaign, as a part of the 50 years of independence celebrations, there are a few things I want to talk about. What is corruption? What is corruption? The word corruption comes from a Latin word, corruptus, meaning a broken thing, to break. You have broken it. But in our under the Prevention of Corruption Act, it is categorized as corruptly soliciting, receiving, or agreeing to receive for yourself or any other fashion, corruptly giving, promising, or offering to any person. If you promise, someone is doing for you government service, and you promise to him that if you do for me this service, I will give you this, that is corruption. If you go and if you want your work to be done very fast, and you think you can give money for it to be given to you, or to be done very fast, that is corruption. If you are doing government contract, and somebody asks for money from you and you give it, that is corruption. Corruption takes very many forms. The Inspectorate of Government Act 2002 defines as corruption as the abuse of public office for private gain. Abuse of public office for private gain. So anything done in public interest, and if you abuse it, that is corruption. What are the causes of corruption? Causes of nguzi. What are the causes? Why are people corrupt? Why do they get involved in corruption? We have identified some few. Some of them have been mentioned already. A member of Mr. I have forgotten his name. He mentioned it. One of them is moral degeneration. Moral degeneration. Please, please, please. I am happy that the Catholic Church has taken up the stand to fight corruption, because our morals are decaying. Therefore, the churches must become responsible to inform our people. While we are doing this, but the church is so important, very, very important, because when you're in church, people listen to you. You tell them, please, corruption is very bad. That's one of the things. The second one, they mentioned it, culture and the customs. Mr. Solomon, you mentioned it. Our cultures and customs. At times when you have better things, when you have many things, they don't even ask how do you have got them. But they're always happy that our son has brought something for us. They don't know where they get them from. Poverty. Poverty is one of the causes of corruption. I'm telling you this. I want to be a bit frank that poverty is one of the causes of corruption. You are poor, your children must go to school. How do they go to school? How can you afford? We must think about this thing very seriously. Like HSC university is supposed to be paid. You know, me, I have a problem. The problem I have with the parliament is that you allowed us to go for UPE. It is good for children to study for free. But those days, I myself, we paid for primary school. But there was little money which was being paid for primary studies. But when you come to HSC and university, that's where there is a lot of money needed. But now, if I'm poor, my child is bright, but cannot be among the top, it means I must look for money to pay for my children. Where do I get it? That's the problem. I think people must think about these things seriously. Whether selected few should go to university, whether everybody should go to university, but we must pay. I don't know. We must think about it seriously. There is greed. Some people are so greedy that you have got enough, you are just greedy, you want to get more. Why? Why don't you leave some for some other people? Greed, greed, greed. Peer pressure. Peer pressure is one of the factors. Now you see, you have completed school. Some other person's father is very rich. He has bought for him a vehicle. He has built for him a house. But for you, you have been the brightest person in class, but you cannot afford this. What do? You must work very hard and get some way of doing these things so that you have the vehicle which the other boy has. It is not good. We must suppress this peer pressure. Peer pressure is so terrible. And the expectations of people. People's expectation. People expect you to be better than what you are. You are a graduate, but you don't have a house. You are not. You don't have a vehicle. You are a graduate. What are you? And even our wives put us on pressure. But the other one has a vehicle. Why don't we have a vehicle? My children are not going to Kisubi. Why should they not go to Kisubi? They are going to these are the very poor schools. You want your children to go to Kisubi. The wife is pressurizing the husband. Or the husband is also pressurizing the husband, the wife. But most cases it is the wives who pressurize. You see, now it is a problem. It is a pressure for us, pressure, all the time pressure. So you must look for something so that you take your children, or you buy a vehicle, or to better schools, or you own a vehicle. That is a very, very important thing. We must work against it. Bad governance, when governments are governed, when governments are badly, what do I call them? Governed, okay. It is a problem. It is a problem. Like in Somalia, when there was no government in Somalia, what happened? There was a lot of corruption. There were killings. There were what? In the past, we also had those. There were a lot of killings. There were a lot of problems in this country. But unfortunately, I think there is some level of good governance in this country now. That's why we can gather like this and talk about these things in this community. There's another one which is becoming serious now, even in this particular government. Commercialization of politics. Commercialization of politics. People will have commercialized the politics. You remember some elections were cancelled. People went for re-election by elections. Commercialization of politics is very dangerous. Let's not accept it. It is corruption. It is corruption. We must not accept to commercialize politics. Now, I want to go to the different forms of corruption. Because corruption are just two forms. I will not talk much about them. One is petty corruption. Petty corruption. Some policeman, I'm sorry to mention this, but Mr. Soreni, you will help me. You will forgive me. You find some policeman standing on the roadside, or a traffic man, when you make some small mistake, and then he asks you, okay, I'm taking you. Then you say, you help me. 2,000, 5,000. Those are just petty corruption. Petty corruption. But the effect, now, for example, when you go to land office, you want your documents to land title to be processed, and then you give something very small, and then the thing is processed very fast. When you come to IGG's office, I will give you an example. We are investigating, in the office of the IGG, we are investigating some issue to do with the bad works by engineers. Now the engineer mobilized himself to bring money to us, 8 million shillings. Now the engineer was in Germany. He wanted to bring the money to Kampala. Now when I was contacted, I said, fine, let him bring it. He came to Kampala in one of our, in fact, this place where it is, which has been erased, this park, Centenary Park. The man came there. He gave us the money. We arrested him. Took him to the police. He was convicted, 3 years in prison. You can imagine that you want to bribe the office of the IGG. You come to bribe the office of the IGG. That is what is reported to us. But maybe there are some others which are not reported. Now, there is what they call grand corruption. Grand corruption, but of course, grand corruption involves highly placed public officials. It is deals to do with contracts, big contracts, a lot of money, exchange hands. When you want to get a contract of 10 billion shillings, 1 billion shilling must go. That is what is called grand corruption. Now, of the two forms, petty corruption is prevalent. It is with very many. It involves very many people. And the effect is so gross of petty corruption. Because it's small. But the effect, the overall effect, is very big. So really we must avoid it. I know most of us here, if we deal in corruption, it must be petty corruption. Therefore, I'm advising you, ourselves, to be very, very careful to avoid that, so that we say no to corruption. The effects of corruption, it undermines implementation of public projects and service delivery. Someone talked about health service delivery here. It undermines it when there is corruption. It destroys the credibility of government. It really destroys the credibility of government. When people understand that people in government are corrupt, they become a bit, said, these people are corrupt now. It destroys the credibility. And people become resistive to government. Demonstrations become very prevalent because of corruption, riots, civil strife, aimed at removing a regime in power. And corruption is very dangerous at that level, I'm telling you. Because people will understand that their suffering is caused by government in power. So therefore, we must fight. We must make all efforts to fight corruption so that we don't have those problems. Corruption may therefore cause economic decline, social disharmony, and political instability. We must avoid those. Do we have framework to fight corruption? Yes. We have a framework under the Constitution. We have a lot of very many institutions to fight corruption. And therefore, we must use all of them in the fight against corruption. First is the presidency. Under Article 99(1), the powers vested in the president, the executive authority of Uganda, and the president is vested in the president. The president shall execute and maintain this constitution and all laws made under the constitution to enforce the fight against corruption. It's very, very important. You must know all this. Because if you have complained to all other institutions, you have failed, then the president is still there for you to raise the matter of corruption. The Inspectorate of Government. The office of the IGG is very ready to help you in the fight against corruption. Please, if you hear of anything to do with the corruption, please report it to IGG. Last week, Friday, we arrested a police officer. We arrested a police officer, inspector of police at the Soroti. But you know, this police officer, we arrested him with the help of police. With the help of police. Police has been so helpful to us these days. We'll have to help for police. There's a, whatever they call it, I don't know, there's the SS something. They are very helpful, and even the head of the police in the region was annoyed with the officer, saying, I'm tired of this man, please arrest him. We arrested him. Somebody's phone, I think, was misplaced, and he was taken in custody of police. Now, that man wanted to release the phone, but he said, the man must give him some money first. The man said, but how? So do you give us? If you don't have something, that's your problem. So the man came to us. Now, when they rang the regional police officer, he told us, that is very good. Let's get him. We got a policeman from Mukakumi because we are known in Soroti. The police officers there are also known in Soroti. So we had to get police officers from Kumi. And we arrested the police officer. Now, unfortunately, when the police officer is in custody, we kept him up to yesterday. And then the PSU came to us and said, no, you can't keep somebody like that. Then we are also again to release him on bond. But he's going to be charged. I'm telling you now, we arrested, today we arrested. I'm telling you, today, we arrested the head of National Theatre. The head of National Theatre, you may know him. We arrested him because of the same problem of embezzlement, abuse of office, and the loss of financial loss, cause of financial loss. So this is very, very important. We must know that it is, if you're in public office, even if you are not in public office, but if you are bribing a public officer, you are corrupt also. The giver and the receiver are both corrupt. Yeah. Thank you. Judiciary. Judiciary, the judges, the courts are part of the people who are supposed to fight corruption. We have an anti-corruption court. Now we have an anti-corruption court. If you are corrupt, you are taken to court, to the anti-corruption court. You are not taken to any other court. So, if you get involved, you know it is serious. The DPP, the DPP is the Director of Public Prosecution. And as you know, the IGG has not been properly constituted, because the second deputy IGG was supposed to come into office was withdrawn by the president. The appointment was withdrawn. Therefore, we are still, so the DPP is the one who handles our cases for prosecution. We refer our cases to him so that he authorizes us to prosecute. So they are very, very important. The Auditor General, the accounting officers, the PSs, permanent secretaries. Uganda Police Force has been very useful in the fight against corruption. Although we are the lead agency in the fight against corruption, we have other agencies like police, DPP, we fight corruption together. Parliament. Parliament is one agency which is so important in the fight against corruption. You know, this PAC, Public Accounts Committee, fights corruption, and when you mismanage money, PAC is always there, ready to come and ask you why you have used money wrongly. Local governments. Local governments at our level, local governments must also ensure that there is transparency, accountability. They must ensure that there is no corruption. Now the last one, which I am very proud of, is the citizens. The citizens, me and you, are very, very important. Article 17.1 of the Constitution imposes a duty on every citizen of Uganda to combat corruption and the misuse or wastage of public property. So it is the responsibility of every citizen to fight corruption. It is therefore the duty of you to ensure that there is no corruption, either individually or in association with others. Individually or in association with others. This article also is the constitutional basis for the involvement of civil society organizations in the struggle against corruption. That's why I was calling the churches, the NGOs, like this one, John Paul II, to come up. The coming up of this organization is very, very important. We must pursue this objective and fight corruption in this country. Now the challenges, we have challenges in the fight against corruption. One of the challenges is the nature of the offense. This corruption takes place between two people or a few. And once they do it, they keep it a secret to themselves. So it is very difficult for you as the agencies fighting corruption to know about it, unless someone comes up and gets disgruntled, or some of you who are listening, when you know, you come to the Inspectorate of Government or any other body to fight corruption. You will report to NGOs, you can report to NGOs, to report to IGG if you fear to come to IGG. That is very important. Inadequate resources, we have talked about this inadequate resources. Maybe I will not expound on this. But let me talk about weak anti-corruption institutions. We have weak anti-corruption institutions. The anti-corruption institutions which we have are still weak. We have to develop the capacity of people who work in those offices. Even the civil society organizations must be, we must develop their capacity to become very, very hard and very serious. When they mention something about corruption, they should stand up very firmly. Weak public support. The public support we have is a bit weak. Because if corruption, if you know government is yours, and if you know the government belongs to you, and if somebody is going to be corrupt, and then you know they are squandering your money, why should you be weak? Why should you not rise against those people? So the public support must be high. Unless we all accept corruption as an evil to be in our society, it will not be fought. All participation of all people of goodwill, the efforts of anti-corruption agencies will be useless. So therefore, you must come up. The public support the public must come up to fight corruption together. Now, because some people think, because the finances which come from the government, to support the anti-corruption work comes from government, therefore the government should, the institution may be weak. But now the civil societies are privately sponsored from outside, not government. So therefore, what is the problem? What is the problem with civil societies? You are not financed by government. For us, we are supported by government. So when you are mentioning some things, you must be a bit polite. Say, no, you see, government, we will not say what we want to say. But what is stopping the civil society organizations who are not financed by government from mentioning what is wrong with the government? It's important. We must know that. I'm finalizing. It's okay. All the above indicate that the fight against corruption is not easy. It calls for active involvement of members of the public, strong institutions that not only back, but bite and chew. You must bite and chew. Adequate resources to sustain the fight and the holistic process will be very, very good. These challenges notwithstanding, the Inspectorate of Government has recorded several achievements and delivered on its mandate and functions with varying degrees of success. We have achieved some of these, which I will mention to you. Mr. Solomon mentioned here that he is interested in statistics. I will give you my statistics also. One, the Inspectorate of Government is currently prosecuting 164 cases in the courts of law. And then we have some 48 civil matters which are also in court. At the beginning of the year 2012, we have arrested people, 55 people were arrested. This was up to the end of September. At the end of August, we have arrested for 51 people. The Inspectorate of Government is monitoring the utilization of public funds in central government and the local governments. And this also includes other government programs like NUSAF. Now NUSAF is in northern Uganda, PRDP is in northern Uganda, and then there is this agricultural nuts is all over. We are monitoring implementation of those programs. So once you're involved in some of these programs, please don't hesitate to come to the Inspectorate of Government. We also sensitize and educate the public about the dangers of corruption. We normally go on radios. Radio Fast I saw that Radio Fast is there. Radio Fast is in Arua. When we normally go to Arua, we go to that radio to talk about corruption. I must add that it is because of this sensitization that today we are launching this anti-corruption campaign. This is a very good gesture in the right direction. How I wish everyone could take this step that you have taken in the fight against corruption. I wish everybody would take this step. Sincerely, it is a very good step, and it is a challenge. And a challenge to everybody. All the other religious organizations must take up this challenge. The Muslims, the Protestants should take up this challenge. It is our morals which are going. Please, let's bring them back. In conclusion, I know I've taken a lot of your time, but let me conclude. In conclusion, as we celebrate the 50 years of independence, we must join hands in order to have a corruption-free Uganda. Each of us has a role to play. Let us all play our part and will achieve this dream. The fight against corruption needs concerted effort. We must invite everyone into the web of the system of integrity. And shift our focus on real value so that we enjoy our independence and self-determination. Independence means self-determination, but if there's corruption, it is not realized. May I conclude by commending you, John Paul II Justice and Peace Center, for standing up to be counted in the fight against corruption in Uganda. John Justice, stand up for corruption. That is very good for us. John Justice, oye! John Paul II Justice and Peace Center, oye! Oye! Thank you for coming on board, and thank you for listening to me.
Yes. Yeah, this was a very impressive speech, which we had. We shall have a version of Luganda, but before that, I would like to say one thing. In his submission, he said one of the reasons for corruption is greed. And I would like to quote one of the great Indian scholar and also human rights activist, Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi said, the world has enough